professional instructors. You have talked to other instructors where you're like, I don't know. Would I send my people to them? Would I send someone I care about to them? And John says it very, very beautifully. Like he wants to have people do this program that are heartfelt and value added. He means that it is part of our core value. And that's really what we're hunting for. I mean, we're not looking to change people, but if you're the right person and you have found a roadblock where you have not found the way to develop yourself and you feel like there's something more out there, because that's what brought me kind of to this program. I'm a graduate myself. I kind of thought I was alone in the way I thought about things, about the student being first. I do not matter in this. I am there to help them, not the other way around, not them to help me. And if you're running into that, this is a program you should probably look at. And there's enough people out there that have gone through now that you can check and see how people feel about it. I mean, we get feedback that is incredibly uplifting for me. I mean, we hear stuff like not just work changing or professional aspect changing, but life changing. The way people look at the way they do things, the way people look at the world, uh, and that I mean, that it's humbling. But that's kind of what we're hoping to achieve, honestly.
Right. My next question is, who the heck are the students? And because I don't, I'd imagine, or not necessarily who are the students, but is the student body going to run out? I don't know if it's just because I have such a skeptical or cynical opinion of the middle of the firearms training industry. Like there's just people that want to get into it for their certificate mill piece of it. I just want to do my state CCW course. I'm going to sign. I'm going to pencil whip certificates, um, and that is kind of like when Andy takes classes, and I'm sure when you guys take classes, 80% of the class are dudes that you've trained with before as students. So how many? What's the demographic for the students? And Chris, I want to kind of get your feedback on it, and then I want to kick that over to Memphis and Tyler, their thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think when your business model isn't driven around revenue, that ceases to matter as much. Where we're more interested in quality than quantity. That's why we don't stuff 25 people in a 6-month program. We do like 10, because the people that need us will find us. We have enough brand exposure out there. So I think there's plenty of people that seek more, and more doesn't readily exist, right? So I think there's plenty of opportunity there, and I think it's self-perpetuating. Once good quality people make it through, you'll find more good quality people that are looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that because it's and I've talked about it on the show before. How when I first got into it, there was a list of instructors that I wanted to train with, and I trained with a couple of them, or I taught, and then that list got very very small. And then I started talking to and associating with a couple great dudes, great instructors, and then that list is slowly but surely expanded, right? And it's like now my list of folks that I want to train with is growing again, and I'm like, holy cow, man, there aren't enough weekends in the year to really do all of this stuff. So, Memphis, I want to kick it up to you, kind of your opinion and your thoughts on that, the student body makeup, from your perspective as a student through this program. Do you feel like there's going to be, a growing student base that will want to invest the time that it takes to go through a 6-month program?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't have a doubt in my mind because when I was done with this program, I had people hitting me up there like, "Hey man, like, is this thing really legit? Because I'm looking for something." I think that the certificate mills are getting enough traction to where it's not really just a step up anymore; it's required. Particularly in the circles that we typically run in. Now, your gateway your gateway instructors, yeah, they're still going to benefit from just having an NRA certificate or a USCCA certificate, because the guy that signs off that you're authorized to teach in this state, the guy up in, Nashville or Jackson or, like whatever your state capital is, they're probably not going to know what range master is. They're probably not going to know, a lot of these bigger names. So they need to see NRA or USCCA on your certificate. But everybody kind of knows that there really should be something else, right? There's a lot of folks out there that are looking for that second level. So if you want to become
real quick, Memphis, I want to cut
yeah.
you off on that because I think I want to fix what you just said. I think everyone should know that there's more than this. And I think that's kind of where Jeremy was getting to, of being kind of cynical about the gun industry, because, in our circle that we see, because I kind of feel like I'm in that circle too a little bit, all of us believe in more training, more knowledge, more learning, but there is such a vast amount of people that are satisfied with the NRA or the USCCA cert, and that's it. So, and I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just kind of feel like that's an important thing to say, that I just feel like more people should know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And we should define that. You know what I mean? Because I think there's this distinct difference between someone that just wants their permit or someone that just wants to be an instructor and someone that actually has a need to defend themselves and their families. I think there's a difference there, because I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, like, what actually is a gateway student, right? If someone just shows up to a class and all they want is their armed guard certification, if that's all they want, they just want their piece of paper. Or if someone comes to a class and all they want is their permit, is that really the type of student that is that really the type of person that's part of our community? Because I don't think that they are. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. So you can drive a car, right? You can own a car and you could drive it to work and back every day, but that doesn't make you a car guy. Like you're going to say things like there's no replacement for displacement. Like, you're going to know what torque differential is. You're going to know, like, you're going to change out your own battery, your own spark plugs, your own oil, your own everything. Most folks nowadays aren't going to do that. They're just going to get in the car and drive. And I see that same thing happening with firearms. They're going to buy a firearm. Does that mean that they're actually a defensive practitioner? Jeff Cooper would say that just having a gun doesn't make you armed any more than having a guitar makes you a musician. So I think that for us in our community, I think there's a difference there. And the folks that we talk to, the folks that we have these conversations with, I think our people are looking for a next level.
Can I hop in real quick? Because I kind of want to touch on what he was saying. Another thing I think is super important from a student perspective. Let's move away from us as instructors talking about it. From a student perspective, if you run into an instructor that specifically got their certification so they could put instructor behind their profile name or something like that, you as a student are going to know that really quick when you spend your money to go work with them. Now, is that saying that they're bad at what they do? No. But you'll also know when you go find a seasoned or capable professional that is good at what they do. So I think when we're talking about what we're trying to develop as a community of people that are continuing to strive to do better, all of us, everyone on this panel talking today, that's our job to do. Because if not us, then who? Who else is going to do that for us? So, I mean, everything we can do to help that community that doesn't know the difference, or maybe we can save them a little bit of finding out the hard way what the difference is.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know. I had a moment listening to you guys talk, and I'm like, well, Tom Givens is still selling out his instructor courses every month, several courses a month, And there's no requirement for that. Like you don't have to go take a Tom Givens instructor course to hang your shingle out there and start teaching folks how to shoot. So I get I'm a little bit jaded, I guess, from like my perspective out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then I said, well, hold on a second. Tom Givens is still selling out $500 and $600 courses, and he's added his advanced, and he's added his master, and now he's added another level. So obviously there's a market for it. So
See,
Tyler,
I just think for every 10 of those, there's one of you that's looking, and the one of you is the ones I'm looking for.
That makes sense. Tyler, let's get your thoughts on kind of this conversation.
It's funny you said Tom Givens is selling out, because that was exactly what I was going to say. You're like, I don't know if y'all got the customer base for that. I was like, man, if Tom Givens can do it, there's got to be because if his, and I don't say that in a way that it degrades Tom Givens. I'm saying it in a mathematical type of way, because exactly what Chris said. Because Tom Givens is pushing out a lot of quality students, and like I said, of every 10, there's got to be one that wants more. Of every 10 of people that went to Tom Givens, those 10 already knew that the NRA and the USCCA wasn't quite enough for what they wanted to do in life, so they sought more. There's no way you can't tell me out of those 10, there's at least one or two that wants even more beyond that. And where do you go from there? There really isn't anything other than, like you said, Mike Seeklander's 5-day ordeal. And let's be honest, not everybody even knows Mike Seeklander is a thing. And that's a tragedy, because I feel like he's one of the best coaches in the nation. But depending on what demographic of people you're around, they don't even know who Mike Seeklander is. Case in point, I didn't even know who Gabe White was until about a year and a half ago when when Mikos told me about it on the ride up to Sioux Falls. And funny enough, I didn't know who Tom Givens was either until that same exact ride. I came from a very different demographic. I was always around USPSA shooters and like SWAT teams and team guys with Rodney. There really was no in between. I didn't know this in between even existed. And I used to think the same thing before I was became privy to this whole different market of defensive shooter, regular citizen people. That, man, this is a really small market. There's no way I can make a living out of this. Now, I still think that sometimes, but now that I've been exposed, if you will, to this whole nother world of people that carry a gun, my view on it has very much changed. There's definitely a market out there. And the cool thing that I like about the ASPIC ordeal is they are very blessed to know exactly who their target market is. And their target market is exactly who the people I like being around as well, because they strive. They're almost perfectionists, if you will. Like that, wherever you're at still ain't good enough. You're always looking for the next thing to improve upon. And that's awesome, because that's the exact type of instructor you want to turn out. It really is. You want to find the person that is never satisfied with good enough. I like Tim Herring's shirt that says, "Sorry, I don't speak mediocrity." Love it. I think I even used that against an employee like a couple of years ago or something. But man, shouldn't we all be looking for those as well? Like Chris said, we should be also looking for those students that feel like, their little small experience of enhanced carry class or whatever is good enough, and show them that there's more and it's quite not good enough. But we should also be looking for those instructors that are yearning to be the best versions of themselves they can, but they don't even know ASPIC exists, or they didn't know Tom Givens exists. Like me, I didn't know none of this exists. Man, if it wasn't for Chris, I wouldn't be here right now. And I'm just super thankful that he did find me, and he didn't even have to twist my arm that hard to get me to do it, but he kind of did.
Tyler, I want to stay with you a little bit. What was the most challenging part for you out of the whole deal? Like, man, that was a challenge. That was an obstacle.
Trying to do the shooting portion with a torn tendon in my left elbow. No, really. I'm a nerd. I was actually so I got my start doing all this stuff. You think that's Stephanie making those comments? Probably. No,
That's
so
probably Neil.
I I really was a nerd, man. I graduated 12th out of my class out of 350 people. I was a math tutor at the age of 14 and a saxophone tutor at 15. Um, so the whole academic side of things were a total breeze for me. I do have a little bit of reading comprehension issue, but they gave me ample time to get through that. Like, they didn't force a book down my throat or anything by any means. I felt like I had enough time, enough pressure to get through it, but enough time to really absorb it. But yeah, no, there was it, it, it was challenging enough to keep my attention, but it wasn't hard per se. But again, your mileage may vary because I was a very academically successful person.
I could have been if I applied myself. That was my biggest problem in high school, man. I was just, and I found if I'm challenged, then it keeps me engaged, and it really
Exactly
accelerates my learning and my desire and my drive to learn. And then once I reached adulthood and I matured a little bit, I realized, well, hey, man, half the battle is doing the crap that you don't want to do and you don't think you need to do, and figuring that piece out. So, Memphis, what are your thoughts on that, man? What were some challenging parts of the course for you?
I think the most challenging portion was just keeping myself accountable with the homework, because it's a lot. It's a semester. It's a college semester, and as far as I understand, it's a master's level college semester. So I actually fell behind. It took a lot of effort in order for me to catch back up. The shooting was easy. The shooting, and I don't say that it would be easy for anybody, but just compared to everything else that was out there, like I'm talking, we were paired up with other instructors that we only knew for maybe a day and a half, and we had to teach a module. We were, we had to, do book reports, weekly assignments. We had to coach a line. We had to, run a line. It was a lot. So if anybody thinks that the shooting would be the hardest part, it's really not. I think the hardest part for me was really just kind of, the reading, and I think the part that was most beneficial was the empathy. Just being able to see, everybody that opened up their hearts and they shared so much, and they treated me like I was part of their family, and that hit me right in the soul, brother. That touched me. So
yeah, what exactly? I want to double down on that. One quick little thing, I was really thankful for how supportive and okay they were with me just being me and not having to be something that I felt like I was expected to be. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, coming from somebody that we had a range session this weekend, and Andy took a video of me coaching up a student, and he sent it to me, and I'm like, dude, the entire time I'm just in my head like, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. This makes no sense. This, you're talking out of your ass. And Andy was like, no, dude, it was good. It was spot on. So I immediately I sent the video to, Tim, and I was like, Tim, what are your thoughts on this, man? And he was like, no, man, exactly. Sounds good. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. And I think I get that imposter syndrome a lot from that. It's because how do you, I don't know, I guess it's a level of vulnerability that is difficult to rise to when you're teaching folks, because nobody knows 100% of the answers 100% of the time. So if I ever start a class and a student hits me with a question that I can't immediately answer, it throws off the next 2 or 3 hours. Like I'm like, what? You're an idiot. How you're taking people's money. You're supposed to know. And it's just a weird freaking dynamic that's going on upstairs. Chris, I had a question that I wanted to ask you specifically about, but I want to come back to that because I want to dig into that a little bit more. Is it challenging to to get people to open up in the program to where they're able to arrive as they are, come as you are, and really just settle into who they are. And I'd imagine that you'll probably finish out, or you have a sentiment. It's like, hey man, once we get people to do that, the level that they're able to teach other folks just exponentially increases.
Well, I mean, is it hard for me? I mean, because I take convention and I light it on fire. That's really why we do so much interpersonal kind of interaction. So when we start any cohort, any class, I mean, any class anyone on this panel has ever done, if they do the introduction phase, that people are just going to say what they think everyone else in the room wants to hear about them, right? So it's a measuring contest. I allow that to happen for about 5 minutes. And then I just start dismantling that, because really, how do you get to the truth or the crux of anything if we're posturing? Then it's just posturing. No one's really saying what they really think. And for this to work well, we're crossing some ground. And I think that's what's really difficult about, a lot of instructor programs is no one's really asking the hard questions. Well, what if you have a student that isn't interacting well with you? What if you have somebody with exceptionalities? What if there's so many myriads, ethical questions, all these things that never get talked about because there aren't very many communities for instructors to really talk about how they feel. It's posturing. Who's better? Who's got more student base? Who's got this? Who's got that? Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And I work really, really, really hard to kind of disarm that, where no one's winning, right? Nobody's winning. Let's talk about the real stuff and try and get where we need to go, because there's no point in wasting the time on who's doing better. It's silly.
That makes perfect sense. And it's awesome. Very well said. I want to get back to, Tyler mentioned something about, or I think it was actually Mikos, right? When you're at the range, when you're in Idaho, when the students were in Idaho, they had to coach and run a line. Chris, can you go a little bit more into detail about that? What does that look like? Is it more of a teach back situation, or is it a teaching folks how to run an effective line?
I think it's more about and that normally we're doing that very, very early on in the cohort. So there's a couple things you're trying to do. One, nerves are very, very high. So there's ample opportunity to do some kind of teach back stuff. We'll actually let people break off, and it changes. It's dependent on the group, but we'll figure out, okay, hey, tomorrow you guys are teaching some drills, or we'll kind of mix it up on them. We'll say, hey, well, now you're teaching this, or we're going to give you a topic to teach. And it's an opportunity to stretch. It's not a gotcha. It's just an opportunity to stretch and receive feedback, not only from us, but from the collective group, because that's a big piece of it. A big piece is trying to get this group to start working together, because they're stronger as a whole than they are in their parts. And then as you go through that 6 months together, they become really cohesive and they're supporting each other. And then learning starts happening quick, because it doesn't have to necessarily be 100% guided. So it's dependent. It really depends on the group, how we kind of structure that, because we do honestly structure it to the group we have in front of us.
Man, that's so when I show up to a class and when I'm training with folks, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm constantly watching the instructor, and I'm looking for, hey, how is this instructor running the line? How did Tom run the hot range? And really trying to steal tidbits and, some information from there, because where do you get that? Even in Tom's range master instructor, you write his IDC, there wasn't much. And maybe I don't remember it. I don't recall it, but I didn't feel like there was much discussion on how to effectively or efficiently run a range. And in an entry level course, that's one of the, I remember back to very early on in my firearms instruction career or whatever, hobby, whatever the heck you want to call it. And a mutual friend, is this person I had worked with previously. Her husband ran a local gun shop here in town, and they were looking to pick up a concealed carry instructor. And I was like, yeah, I could. They were looking for something a couple nights a week just to kind of fill in a void. And I was like, yeah, I'd absolutely be interested in it. And they came out and kind of observed how I ran the range, and it was the worst job that I'd ever done running a range. And partly because I had some eyes on me, partly because I didn't really understand what the heck I was doing with regards to that and how to make it more efficient, more streamlined, how to look at potential safety issues. It was a great learning opportunity, and fortunately nothing negative came out of that. So that was one of the things that I had to pick up kind of on my own through trial and error. And then, now I have some great folks with me, Andy especially, right? So I know if Andy's ever not on the range with me, I'm like, oh crap, man, right? But having Andy on the range there with me, and I feel like we have a pretty good system that's dialed in now. But here it is 13 years later, and I feel like that's something that new instructors should get. So it's reassuring. It's cool to hear that, hey, that's something that's actually getting talked about.
That's just to kind of touch on what you're talking about. Some things we've been working in this last cohort is really, really delving into having people create like job aids. So you're really thinking through what you're doing and you're articulating that in writing. Like, how would you teach someone to work for you? And I think that's really what happens a lot of times, where we get into teaching or we get into doing something and we never really 100% took the time to completely flesh that out. Like, think about every aspect of it and then commit it to writing, or at least articulate it verbally. So that's stuff we're always kind of trying to do, new and interesting ways to kind of get people. Really, all of it boils down to getting people to critically think about what they're doing. If they start critically thinking about what they're doing, this is just like any other job. It's just like anything else that you want to excel at. If you really start kind of, okay, let me think this through. How would that work? And you have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to bounce that off your peers, you cannot help but get better. It's inevitable.
I struggled with that a ton 7-8 years ago when Andy came on with me. It was awkward, right? In my personality, I don't want to feel like I'm bossing somebody around. So what that ended up resulting in was a lack of direction, a lack of clear direction. And for the longest time, I held out on bringing on, adjunct instructors or people to come out and help me out on the range. Because a lot of those folks didn't show the initiative, right? Andy was the exception to that. And then another instructor that we work with regularly, he came recommended from my NRA training counselor. But it's one of those things where it was a complete lack of direction on my part. And it eventually got to a point where, we were butting heads on some shit. And I'm sure Andy had thought about like, F it, I'm out of here. I'm going to be out of this deal.
I do have a question for you though, Jeremy, just because I cannot help but keep my analyzer hat on. But when you say like in the beginning and it lacked direction and you felt like it was unfavorable, did you feel like it was unfavorable, or your students said it was unfavorable?
Hold on. Let me, I'm going to cut in because I'm going to answer that question a little bit for Jeremy, because, Jeremy brought up earlier about a video that I recorded of him coaching a student, right? And Jeremy's like, oh man, I got imposter syndrome. It's not the right thing. It's, and the first day. So in Albuquerque, we've mentioned this before, our concealed carry class, we teach, it's a 2-day course. Jeremy comes in and he teaches the first half of the day. And then the second half of the day, I get messages from Jeremy. Oh man, I sucked. This was horrible. This was the worst class ever. The reality is Jeremy's just too hard on himself most of the time. I wouldn't be working with Jeremy for 8 years if it wasn't because he's one. You know, I often mention role models like Tim and many other instructors that I work for, but the reality is I work with Jeremy because he's one of my biggest role models. And you know, he gave me a really good shout out earlier, and I'm not trying to give him like this, you know, no shirt hug or anything, but it's true. It's a reality. Jeremy's really hard on himself. And the reason why I'm still here is because watching Jeremy's passion has rubbed off on me. And that's the answer for Jeremy. I'm just going to give it to you because he
No,
ain't going to give you the right
I'm
one.
cool. And the way I would retort to that is, you know what you can't teach somebody? And I'm going to use some language here. I hope your audience doesn't mind, but I can't teach people give a shit. I can't teach people to care. I can teach them how to do things better. But if you have that, and if you're beating yourself up about it, it shows you do. You can't teach people that. You can teach everything else. So certainly it shouldn't be, a negative thing to you, but that's not something to be ashamed of. You actually care about the product you're producing, which I wish more people did.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Memphis, Tyler, and Chris. You're teaching a student, and maybe not now with your experience now, but for me, even doing this for 8 years, I'll be teaching a student, and I'm standing next to this person and I'm working with something of their fundamentals. And in my head, I'm thinking, man, Jeremy's probably listening to me. I'm hoping I'm saying the right thing, or I hope I'm giving them the right answer. And then you go home and then you start kind of dwelling on the day of like, man, I hope I told that person the right thing. And then for me, I start like doing research. Was that the right thing? And it's like, yeah, that's the right thing. And then I have to step back and say, Andy, you've been doing this long enough, man. You got to be confident. And I think that's part of it, just including myself in this, of giving a shit, having the passion that you want to make sure that this student that you're working with understands and can go home with something that's positive, right? And I just want to add something else, that we were talking about gateway instructor earlier, and gateway students even more so, and the importance of, it's not about the money, because we don't make that much money. Matter of fact, lose a lot of it. But you know what, it's important because I want to tell a quick story. We had a student in class. We went through the whole concealed carry course. We were saying our goodbyes. She was the last person in class, and she told us about how she had a home invasion. And this is the reason why she came to class. Two men came to her front door. She seen them out the window. She ran to her living room, grabbed her phone, ran inside her room, locked the door, called 911, put it on the speaker, and stood behind her bed, pointing a firearm at the door. And she said, I knew this was win or lose. If I don't do the right thing, I'm going to die today. And I didn't want to do that. And she goes, once I succeeded from that, I felt like I needed to come to a class to where I can better myself, to make sure I have the confidence, if it was to ever happen to me again, that I know what I'm doing. Right? That's that passion right there. That's why we're here. That's my opinion. That's just my comment on it.
I'm great at segues, so I think I'll take it from here and we'll kick it back over to the class. I'm terrible at segues. I do this thing where I have students visualize their funeral, and then I'll usually end my half of the day, and then I got to go do my full-time gig. I'm like, all right, guys, you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy lunch, and I'm out of here. I give a little discussion. I'm like, hey, because that's what's on the line, right? It's not just this, I get to carry a gun around because it's a cool thing. No, it's, hey, man, if you ever have to pull the gun out and it's a justifiable self-defense deal, that means your life is on the line. It's your life and your freedom, and it's our job to make sure that you stay out of jail and you stay out of the morgue. Because you have people that care about you and depend on you. And we've all had students in class where it's like, well, if I was with my wife, I would do it this way. If it was, they were doing that to my wife, I would stop it at this point. But if I was the only one involved, then, I would let them come up and talk to him. And it's like, well, hey, dude, that's not the dude. Or that, hey, dude, that's not the deal. Right? You're going to alter your behavior because he's a risk or there's a perceived risk that he might pose to your wife or your significant other or your husband. He can still pose that risk to you, man. And you owe it to that person that you're willing to die for, to not die for them, or not die for some shithead at the gas station. So it's it's kind of a thing where it's like, hey, dude, it's serious business when you get down to it. A lot of this stuff is fun and enjoyable, but at the end of the day, if you have to pull your handgun to defend yourself and it's justified, that means if you didn't have your gun, you were probably going to die. Right.
before we move on, can I jump in one more time? Just
Yeah.
because you guys are saying stuff that like it's getting. So we have these conversations with students and people we interact with all the time about the seriousness of a defensive gun use or something like that. But how often are we as instructors telling other instructors or instructors getting educated, the last voice someone might hear in their head when that happens might be yours? I don't think that gets said enough, and that's where I think where you get to people like, well, I'll just teach concealed carry courses and it doesn't matter. No, it matters a lot. Sorry, I had to do that.
12, 13, 14 years, and that's the first time that I've heard that, and it gave me chills. So I think that makes a decent segue. Tyler, what was the biggest aha moment or the biggest takeaway that you had from the instructor program, and how has it changed or altered the way you're doing things?
It's hard to pick only one. But if I had to, my biggest aha moment was being allowed to teach my own way and being assured that it was totally okay. It may not always be the right way. I may not always say the right things. I mean, there's no way that I won't ever not say the right things, right? I'm a dude. I stick my foot in my mouth every once in a while. It's going to happen. The best thing was just being reassured that it's okay. Just keep pushing, keep being yourself. The world doesn't need another whoever it is you think you're trying to be in this world. The world just needs you to be you, the best you. So go do that. So yeah.
And Memphis, same question to you, buddy. What was your biggest takeaway?
It was the second day, and we were paired up. I think they intentionally paired us up with folks that we didn't already have a rapport with. The instructor I was paired up with, her name is Paula Davies, and she was struggling. She needed confidence. She needed a friend. She had friends. She came with a cadre from Northwest Arkansas. Like the people that she brought with her to the class were exceptional. They were extraordinary. They were nation class. They were world class instructors she brought with her. But you could tell that she needed a little bit of extra confidence. And I think it was then when it finally hit me that it wasn't what I knew that she needed. What she needed was she needed trust. She needed me to trust her. And I think that taught me a lot about mentorship right there in that moment. It wasn't really about me. It wasn't about what I had accomplished or what I had done or why I am there. She needed me in that moment. And so, I started off the lecture, and when it came time for her to speak, I told her, hey, look, this is Paula Davies. She's a friend, and she's someone that I trust. And when she talks, I listen. I needed that class to understand that I needed them to trust her the same way that I trust her. And then I needed to trust her. And I think that kind of changed the trajectory of, it wasn't just my course at that point. It was the trajectory of my entire instructing career. It taught me a lot about mentorship.
There's so much involved in that trust, right? With our fellow instructors, ones we work with, and even more so our students, right? That's what they're looking for sometimes, is that person to trust, to show them to trust themselves. And again, I'm going to kind of kick this back to Jeremy. We have on our qualification target, we have 2-inch circle and then a couple really small rectangles. And Jeremy asks them, hey, so in the 2-inch circle, we want you to put all the bullets in one hole. And on the second rectangle, we want you to give us the best group possible, right? And what's the difference? And most, some students will say 1 or 2 or 1, and Jeremy's like, the reality is it's the same. But you know what it is, when we find out and we go to the third target, if you just trust yourself, you're going to find out that you shoot much better than you really think you cannot, right? And so the amount of times that I see that by trust is somebody that's focusing so hard on fundamentals, and then you're like, okay, last target, just let the wheels fall off. Give me 5 rounds as fast as you can. Bam, 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 bam. And then you notice, like, they're not only did they shoot it faster, but they also had a smaller group than probably 1 and 2. So I think trust goes along with the student too. I want to step back real quick because maybe I misunderstood. So this whole course is a 6-month course. There's times that you guys will get together. Is it so when you get together to do the drills, the mentor coaching, and all those things, is that like a weekend thing or is that a 5-day thing? I might have misunderstood that part.
It's a 3-day. So we have a 3-day in person. The majority of the course is remote. It's remote and self-guided learning. We get together weekly and have WebExes where attendance is strongly suggested to not miss. And normally, like the last cohort we just did, we did not, I think out of the 8 people in, we had maybe 3 absences of anyone through the entire program. So really what happens is we try and structure the in-person very early on, because what we want to do is try and instill that community very early on. Because once they get together and they know they can disarm, they know, okay, we can really trust each other. It's not just internet talk. Then kind of everything kind of settles down and people kind of get where they need to go. We have considered in the past maybe doing more than one in person. It's just logistically, and it's challenging from an expense perspective. So really 3 days in the beginning, that's really the best fit we can come up with right now.
And that 3 days is in the beginning of starting the course after you've kind of done
not
your
the very
resume?
beginning. We'll normally do that on, like, say we're starting month 2. So you
Okay.
have like a few weeks where we have like the introductory calls. We'll start touching on topics, things like that. But we have some very specific things that we do in the in-person to kind of push forth the relationship building. And it gives people an opportunity to get to know us as well. Because anytime you interact solely remotely, it's really hard to read people, read their body language, read their intent, things like that. And if you can get that kind of sooner rather than later, it normally helps overall.
We have a listener question. Howie wanted to know or ask what the location of the 3-day in person is.
The last few we have done in South Dakota.
So everybody wants to, not everybody. There's a large portion of the population that might believe an online course or a virtual course is easier. And I have a firsthand experience with this because we offer the only online concealed carry course in the state of New Mexico. And one of the things that FUDs will say, or, that the number 2 concealed carry instructor in New Mexico will say is, well, it's just a fly-by-night deal, right? And I'm sure some courses are like that, but I can attest. I have students that come in from other states that have a concealed carry license, and one of the things they say more times than not is, I thought this was going to be a fly-by-night course, something that I could just breeze through, and it was the complete opposite, right? Because one of the things that I have found an online course kind of requires you to do is everybody engages. If I'm sitting in a 15-hour class, I can hang out in the back of the room and zone out. It's the Charlie Brown want. What is the hardest part, Chris, about this kind of being a primarily virtual event or in a virtual program from the instructor standpoint? What's the hardest part for you?
I don't know that I would say anything's incredibly difficult. I think the most challenging thing in the beginning is to get people to really engage and to be who they are. And it's imperative. It's imperative that you come in because if you're shielded or if you have a wall up, you're not learning, you're projecting. And we really want to kind of get rid of that as soon as possible to get people really interacting in a real way. Because we're talking about a hard subject here. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a life and death subject. And we're trying to be professional practitioners of a life and death subject. So getting people to come in and say, okay, it's okay. It is safe to say you are insecure about this. It is safe to say that you have imposter syndrome. It is safe to say maybe every day I don't shoot Instagram reels. Guess what? None of us do. It's okay. And once you get past that, it's kind of all downhill from there in a good way. The ball starts rolling and people start learning and we open up and we talk about the hard stuff. That's the most challenging thing to get to, and try and get there as soon as possible so we're not wasting any time. Because for me, in a 6-month program, I want 6 months to be productive. I don't want 4 months to be productive. I want from the moment you start to the moment you leave to be as absolute optimal productivity for you as possible.
I'll say right quick that Chris and the crew, the ASPIC crew, breaking down that wall that I had and me projecting who I thought I was supposed to be over it was, I'm telling you, it wasn't just the best thing for me to be an instructor. It was the best thing for me to be who I am. Like I'm a better companion. I'm a better friend. I'm a better employee. I'm a better boss. I'm a better now husband, all because of them taking that wall away and me never building it back up.
Yep. And it's because they don't want the polished you, they don't want the perfect, the professional you. They want you. They want the honest to God you.
Well, they haven't met me, so maybe. No, I'm just playing.
There's still time.
I'll change your world. You're like, oh man, we gotta rethink this entire deal. Maybe we don't want maybe we do want a little bit of polishing.
That sounded like a challenge. Did that sound like a challenge that Jeremy said I couldn't crawl up in his head and knock some walls down?
Oh, challenge. Challenge.
I don't know. I'm a very weird, like psychoanalytical person. And I don't know. I think that's all ego driven, when I get to the root of it. And we could probably spend another 3 hours just, talking through some of my thoughts and on all that weirdness. But I want to I want Memphis and Tyler to talk about, go into a little bit more detail. Why not just chill with the range master cert instructor, the instructor certs that you guys had, and just kind of keep plowing away at what you were doing? Why take on the commitment?
I think I'll go first. I think it's because I had done everything else. Not everything, but I did the range master. I did, less lethal. I did, I went to, the mountain and talked to the sages. Like, I think it was 2022. I racked up like 300 hours of training. Like, it was just, I had done everything else. I'd won the matches. I'd gotten stuff. It was very fleeting. It's very fleeting. Once you win all the pens and the patches and the medals, and it's all very fleeting because it's all just built up on you, And when I'm done, all that stuff is worthless. No, I want others to be able to believe in themselves the same way that I was able to believe in myself. And that is so much more rewarding when you can, you can hang out with like Paula for 20 minutes and now like she's that much stronger. Like she benefits from your being there. That's awesome. And I don't have to be proud of myself for that. I can be proud of her for that. And that's just super liberating for me. So I don't think I get that from any other class, Like Tom is a wonderful person. I love me some Tom Gibbons. Buy all his books, listen to everything he does on YouTube, everything, right? Everything. But active self-protection, instructor certification, this thing right here fills a void that I don't think I'd be on this track if it wasn't for that. And it definitely, like, I'm talking at 100% changed the way that I look at teaching. They don't have to get to my standard. Okay. I need for them to build standards for themselves. So that's what this did for me. I got to live up to Tyler's standard now. Because that pudding patch, man, it's kicking my ass. Like, I don't understand.
Dude, it's kicking mine too, man. I invented the dang thing and I still ain't got it.
It's just three touching bullet holes from 10 yards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got it Thursday, but I didn't want to overlay it while doing a live recording type of thing. But I don't know. I'm not super motivated to get it, to be honest with you. I'm really enjoying everybody else having this awesome success.
Who's gotten it? I saw Tim's video.
Hang on. You know what? I actually keep a list of this because I have to mail them all that. Let's see. Pudding Patch winners. Number 1 was Tim Herron. And then he went to do it again from the draw, strong hand, then back from the draw. I'm sorry, freestyle, then strong hand, and then weekend, which for him
overachiever.
Did he do it?
Right.
He did it that way?
He did it. Of course he did it. Come on.
I need whoever deactivated Trump's Twitter needs to deactivate Tim's sub 2 second bill drill to the freaking head. And now you're talking about.
Yes. And it was not just you had to break out the overlay to see if they're actually touching type of thing. Like, no, there was no defeating it. They were actually touching each other.
I wish he was an asshole, so I wouldn't have to, you know what I mean? Like, feel good that he did that.
So Harley Tutt, Aaron Banks, Keith Tyler, Eric Wise, Nick Nider, Paul Dugan, Dan Brady, Garrett Neal, and Bill Blowers. So far that's the list.
So let's talk about it real quick because he briefly mentioned it. 3 holes touching the same bullet hole from 10 yards. Does it got to be videoed and submitted to you, or how does that work?
Let's see. Here we go. Oh, sure, that's loud in that microphone. Sorry. Let's see. Yep. So your group needs to look like that ish.
There right? It is.
Something about like that. So you get 3 shots, no makeups, 10 yards, no time limit, 357 caliber maximum, and only 3 attempts per day / range visit honor code on that one. I have the video trying to decode itself or whatever in my iMovie, trying to edit it. So whenever I can figure that, because I'm computer dumb. So whenever I can figure out that, it'll go on the YouTube channel.
You're muted.
I said, send me the raw footage of that if you want me to mess around with it. I'm actually getting ready to edit some videos that I shot for the Range Buddy app.
Yes, sir.
I don't know why I did not attempt that because I've been meaning to.
Well, I got the Synergy Functional Exercises video filmed, and I need to edit it as well. So I think y'all will really enjoy the Back It Up Terry portion of that.
Nice. Awesome. Hey, this is, the only thing I'm worse at than shooting is podcasting, I think. And Chris, I want to make sure that we covered everything and we gave the instructor program its due respect. Is there anything else that we should have been talking about that we haven't touched on yet?
No, I don't think so. I think versus a lot where it would just be purely technical, right? If we're just talking about like the semantics of the program, I think this made a lot more sense. We got into the emotional aspect of it, and it was a good conversation. So I'm more than happy about it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
And the follow-up that I have for that question is, what do you want Memphis's and Tyler's students to have benefited from? Like, how do you want this to impact their students?
How do I want the program to impact their students?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one for me. I think I'll put it like this. So I think both of these gentlemen have heard me say this at certain points in conversation. When people are struggling, I wish they could see themselves the way I see them. And I hope their students can see them the way I see them. The faith and the pride and the care that I have in those men, because they have impressed me greatly. They are peers to me. They are not students of mine. They are my peers. And it's a rarity anymore to find people that really care. And I am afforded such great opportunity to work with people that really care. So I hope more students find them, or people like them, someone that actually cares about them.
That's beautifully well said. I think we'll wrap up here in just a second on that. Would like to remind everybody to get out and check out the Range Buddy app. Tyler, if it's okay with you, I'd love to put the put and patch drill up on there for folks, and looking for maybe he didn't like that idea and he just left us. I don't know. Apparently, all right.
I think that's a no.
No, you could have just said no. You didn't have to leave us.
What in the world?
Duly
My computer
noted.
just like went. Man, I really do hate computers. All right, something about
The timing was
Range-
perfect.
Yeah,
It was perfect.
I was like, hey, Tyler, if it's all right with you, I think I'll put the put and patch drill up on the Range Buddy app and make it the featured drill for the rest of August. And you were gone. So
I don't know what in the world. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I clicked or button. I don't know, man. I ain't computer savvy. If it ain't meant to go boom, I ain't too good with it. But no, I would absolutely love that, man. That'd be great.
Awesome. And for the listeners, for the viewers out there that aren't familiar with the Range Buddy app, I'm going to plug it one more time. It's a collection of over 130 shooting drills. They're all supported by the required target type. So if you go out to the range and you have a B8 target or you have a USPSA target, you just select that target type and it will give you a list of drills that you can shoot with that target. If you want to filter it by the different skills that you want to work, say you want to work on draw to first shot, you can input the filter and it'll show you all the drills that work draw to first shot. There's a drill specific leaderboard. So if you want to see how you compare to some other shooters that are shooting the super test or whatever, or the put and patch test, you can do that. It'll track your practice sessions and your training sessions. My favorite part of that whole damn deal is the virtual firearm instructor component of that. I love messing with command targets. When we go out to the range, I always had the most fun when we would challenge each other. We would give each other commands, red, blue, yellow, whatever the heck it was, because it just added a little bit of dynamic randomness, which is a term that I think I made up on a few episodes ago. But it kept it fresh, and it made it more difficult for me to game that string of fire that I was about to shoot. Right. So what the virtual firearm instructor does for you is you input the different color commands, number commands, or shapes that you would like to shoot. You enter a par time. If you would like to work on multiple strings of fire or shots, 2 or 3 shots at a time, you could enter your splits. So say you want to work on, quarter second splits or 0.18. You say, hey, that's my split par time, and it'll automatically calculate and adjust the overall total allowable time that you have. In the world of defensive shooting, not every situation is a pull the trigger until the guy stops. So, there's a threat recognition and some shoot or no shoot decision making that's built into the app. So you can enable shoot or no shoot images that will briefly flash. If you want to work on responding to a visual stimulus, you can enable the visual indicators instead of the audible ones. So instead of saying 1, 2, red or blue, it'll flash the number or color on there for you. If you want to work on movement, you can enable the movement command, and it will randomly give you a move command. And you can use your phone's accelerometer, or you can set a movement time for that. So I was out there shooting videos, and I used the phone's accelerometer. So when it detects you're slowing down or stopping, it'll randomly generate or give you another command. And then it'll give you a reholster command after that. If you want to work on a couple, if you want to say, hey, I want you to choose between 1 and 4 commands before giving me the reholster command, it'll randomly choose that number for you as well. Give you a reholster command and a countdown. That way, put the dang thing in your pocket and let it run. when Andy and I are out there on the range, we'll run it. We'll each have our own target, and we kind of run it together against one another. So it's a fun way to mix that up. And I just shot a drill, or I shot a video for a DIY shooting gallery that I think next time Andy and I have a half an hour out on the range. It's a cardboard target. You hang some clay pigeons from it. You spray paint them each different colors, and then the first person to clean their target is the winner, and gets bragging rights forever, for all of eternity. So that's a long way to say, hey, check out the Range Buddy app if you haven't done so already. I think it's awesome. I'm a little bit biased because it's been a lot of work.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it. Because at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm the only one that thinks this is a good thing. But I do. I love the shit out of it. We're going to give you guys the rest of your evenings back. I know, Chris, you're a couple hours ahead of us, and you have to wake up in a few hours as it is. We really do appreciate the conversation, sharing the knowledge. It was a hell of a conversation, and I really do appreciate you guys sharing your time. Andy, your thoughts, your wrap up.
Yep. Before I give my final thoughts and my thank yous, Chris, do I sense a little Matthew McConaughey in your voice? Can you give me a little all right, maybe?
All right.
Has anybody told you that? I just keep thinking that I'm
I always
listening to
get the
Matthew
Johnny
McConaughey.
Knoxville. Everyone's like, you sound just like Johnny Knoxville.
You know, I didn't hear it until you just said Johnny Knoxville. I'm like, oh damn, it sounds more like Johnny Knoxville.
You know, sell myself out.
I guess. Yeah, man. Thank you guys for coming on. As always, it was a pleasure. You know, I didn't ask a ton of questions because Jeremy was on fire tonight, and you know, I had more statements and questions. And really, me being on this podcast tonight was the biggest benefit because I got to see the front row seat of this great show. You know, it was really, really good and moving for me. It really feels good when I sit with a group of instructors and coaches, Chris, that we have the like-minded beliefs of just a passion of trying to do better. And you know, the always a student thing always comes up, right? But it's a reality of more so of like we want to do right to our students, and we want to make sure that they, whatever path they choose, whether it's one class or they get on this bandwagon of just being a training junkie like we are, we want to give them everything we have. So I really appreciate all of your time. It was a really, really good one.
Yes, thank you guys so much. This is definitely an instructor program that I will hope to be accepted into in the near future. I'll talk a little bit more.
Somebody.
I heard you do. So we really do appreciate you all jumping on and sharing your evening with us. Remember, it's your life, it's your safety and protection, it's your responsibility. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you next week.